This is how we cover a three-sided tray. I'm going to start by making a line on the bottom that is 5/8 of an inch from the bottom. That'll give us a turn in on the bottom of our tray. Okay, so I'm going to make a line here. This will be my guideline for how to place the tray. I'm also going to make a 5/8 of an inch line on the side here. I'm going to use my triangle to make sure it's straight. Okay, so these are my guidelines of where to place it. So it's a 5/8 of an inch over and a 5/8 of an inch up. And now I'm going to glue out my tray. The opening to the tray is going to be facing up to the larger piece of cloth. So I'm going to just paste that out. I'm looking for an even, light coating of glue. And I'm going to line that up right in the corner of my two lines. Let's see here. And I'm just going to flip that so I can bone it down. And I really want to bone that down flat. I'm going to turn it over and using my left hand to support it, just smooth that out and paying attention to the corners. I'm going to keep wrapping my cloth around. So now I'm going to glue out this back, the long wall. Again, I'm lining it up on my guideline here that I drew. I'm going to bone that down and pay attention to these corners. So I'm pushing back also from this side and I'm pushing this way so I don't have like a saggy corner here. And if you have a crease here, just kind of smooth that out. Last wall, again I'm lining it up to that line that I drew. And then again, just kind of smoothing out that corner and boning down. I am using my left hand here to support that so I don't collapse the wall. Okay, we're going to snip the bottom. So the top part, I'm going to fold it over, not a hard fold, but just kind of fold it like that so I can flip it over. And then on the bottom, I'm pinching the corners and just snipping those corners off. And I'm going to paste those out. These are our turn-ins. And the turn-ins, again, are up to you. I like 5/8 of an inch. I think that's a good, safe number. I wouldn't go any smaller than 1/2 of an inch because it just gets, you can already tell this is a little stiff. So the shorter it gets, it'll just take longer to bone down and take longer to glue. And if it's a little longer than that, you can go up to, 3/4 of an inch, but you don't really need that. It's kind of just a waste of cloth because all this is going to be tucked underneath the box. Okay, and since I glued up all three, I'm going to just bone down them in the order that I bone down them. I'm going to bone them down in the order that I glued them. And you don't have to glue out all three at once. It's really just your comfort level of how fast you work. You can glue them out one at a time. bottom of our box here. So I have 5/8 of an inch overhang here. Now we're gonna free up these corners. So this is the triangle that has my markings here. So these lines here are the thickness of my board. So I'm gonna put my triangle right in the corners where the cloth, and I'm just slicing all of them open. There's a diagram that shows what this looks like when all the corners are open. This is also going to help to, if there's any kind of resistance, you know, this cloth wants to fold away from the, or pull away from the board, so this will help it. Okay, so now all 4 corners are open, something like that. But I'm making 2 lines on every corner here, and one line is going to be a board's width in, so I'm just continuing the line of this wall there. And then I am also, let's zoom in a little closer here. I'm continuing this line to this wall, and I'm also using this my triangle to show me where a board's width away is. I'm going to do that on all the corners. So a board's width in and a board's width away. Oops. And then a board's width in, so I'm following this wall down and continuing that line. So this one, I'm going to continue this line here. So from this wall down, and now I'm going to move my triangle over and just, this is a board's width away. So that's how, because this little square is going to be covering this wall, it has to be a board's thickness. And then for the line horizontal, it's a continuation of this line. So I'm just using my triangle to mark that. And all this part will be cut away. I'm going to keep going with my line, so I'm going to continue the line from this wall onto the cloth, and then a board's width away from the top of that wall. And same here, continuing the line from the wall onto the cloth, and a horizontal line that is a board's width away from the top. And one more time. Continuation of that, and there, and a continuation of that wall, and a line away from that board. And then this one is where our little square is going to cover the front of our tray. So that line goes all the way to the edge. Now we have a board's width away, that'll be our little square. And then the horizontal line is a continuation of this wall, starting where the little nub square is. And then we're going to mark that off there. So all this will be cut away. And then here, one more time, continuing the wall line, and then a board's width away. And then right back where we started. So now for the cut lines, for these little tabs, I just like to cut them smallest and then kind of work my way around to the longest wall. So I'm starting my blade, let's zoom in here. I'm starting my blade where these 2 lines intersect, and I'm just cutting out at an angle like that. And then when I fold it over, the idea is that this little triangle that we've cut will lay on top of this wall and cover that corner, while the rest is up the wall just a teeny tiny bit. Now I'm gonna scoot this over. This is the other little front tab. I'm going to start my blade in where the two lines intersect and cut outward at an angle. I'm gonna make sure that worked. So I'm gonna fold it over. Here's my little triangle. That is up on the wall. And the rest folds into the box. Flip this way. So this is the foredge part. And this one is, I like to think of it just a mirror image of this one. So the opposite. So I'm gonna start at the outside corner and cut inward to that intersection. And now I'm just gonna cut off all this excess using my triangle to make sure my lines are straight. So we're left with something like that. I want to keep this square attached to this. I don't want to cut that off, which means I'm starting my cut at the square up here. Okay. And now I'm going to continue this cut for this wall. And now I'm just going to free up that square. Oops. There we go. So we have a little square nub attached to this one. So this idea is that when this goes down, get the triangle covering the corner, and then this one covers this way. And then this little square will go over the top. Keep cutting, and this is towards the back now. This is another ear cut. So I'm going to start where those two lines intersect and just cut out at an angle. And this is one where I have to cut out this excess so it doesn't get bunched up at the bottom. So I'm going to fold it over the wall, find out where that crease is, which is right here. And I'm going to follow my line and just chop that off up to the crease. So now, with all that extra bulk, it should just lay flat on the floor. I'm going to skip that back line because, again, we're going to cut from small to big. So I'm going to go to my other side, which, again, is another ear cut. So I'm going to start at that intersection, cut outward. Can't fold that out yet, so I'm going to move over this way. And I'm going to continue this line here with this wall. And then remember, I want to keep this square attached to this smaller piece. So there's that little square attached to the smaller piece. And this one needs to cover this little squirrel ear, which means I want to cut this at a miter. So I'm going to start at the outside corner and cut to that intersection of those two lines. And then, oops, cut the rest off. Like that. And I can go back here. Again, like we should cut that little squirrel ear. Fold this over to find out where the crease is, where it hits the floor. And now where it's creased, I'm going to cut that line up to the crease and just cut that excess away. Now for our long back wall, both of these are going to be mitered inward and down. So wherever this corner meets, if there's a little squirrel ear, then this is the one you want to miter. They kind of work together. So I'm going to start at the outside corner, cut to that intersection of those two lines. And then using my triangle so I know my line is straight, I'm going to continue that cut. Same thing here, cut from the outside to the intersection. And using my triangle, I'm going to cut that. And now I do want to just miter the corners a little bit, just cut off some of this bulk. So I'm going to just lay that in there, find out where it's meeting, and I'm just going to snip off my corners here. I'm not cutting off a lot, I just want to cut off, some of the excess. If you want like a number, I mean, that's probably, a half of an inch in at an angle. And all that does is it kind of gets rid of this bulk so we not have all these little chunks, right? So when I'm gluing this out, we want to glue all the smaller bits first, and then just work our way to the larger bits. So which means I'm going to start with these little tabs. I'm going to glue my little squirrel ear tab. And if you work fast enough, you can glue them at the same time and then just fold them in the correct order. So I'm going to glue out that corner here and pull up a little bit. I'm going to fold over my smallest tab first, make sure my little triangle is over that corner. Yeah, fold it in, bone that down. You can see here, it does go up that wall just a hair. That's good, because that means this flap is flush with the floor, so they won't bulk up together and it should just lay flat. And so you won't see a seam there like raw board. Like all these little pieces are working together here. I'm going to fold down that triangle right on top of, I have a little bit of an overhang, I'm just going to snip that. So here we have a nice corner that meets. This one is flush, so there's no seam of board. And this little square covers the top of that corner. Now I'm going to move to the other side. Got my little tab. Again, just be mindful of your glue too, where you're gluing it out. And my front. I'm going to fold that over. Make sure my little triangle is in place. Make sure I'm always boning down with the flat edge of my bone folder into that corner. So I'm using my fingers to kind of pull it into place and then going back and boning everything down. Just making sure that lays flat on top. Okay, then we're going to do the two sides. This is the next bigger piece. I'm working from small to big, so let's do these two sides. I'm just using my other hand to hold this flat back out of my way. I'm going to glue that out. And I'm pretty generous with my glue, but I do want just an even thin layer. So I put on the glue and then I kind of go back and just brush up these edges so I don't have any globs of glue around the edges. That just prevents it from when I do bone it down, it won't squirt glue everywhere. So I'm going to bone that on the top of the wall. I'm going to use my fingers to pull that cloth over the side of the wall. Got some extra glue there. I don't want to rub that into the cloth. And using the flat side of my bone folder, I'm going to bone that down and I'm going to go toward the inside of the box so that I don't want any globs of glue up here. I'm all kind of pushing all the bubbles and glue towards the floor. Now I'm just going to use the flat side of my bone folder and glue down that paste down. Next side, same thing, gluing out that wall. So you can see here how I'm gluing. I put, a generous amount of glue and then I go back and I just smooth it out. And it's even, but I'm going back and I don't want to see any, globs of glue, especially towards the edges, because I don't want it to squirt out when I bone it down. I'm going to bone it down over this front of that wall. Using my fingers, I'm going to pull it over to the inside of the wall. I'm going to bone that down and then bone down this way toward the floor. Using the hard edge or the flat edge, I'm going to bone in that crease and bone down that paste on. Okay, and last long wall here. gluing out my last wall. So I'm gluing out. I'm also kind of pulling away from the glue so that I don't, you know, accidentally put my box in the glue. And there's that wall. I'm gonna pull it over and bone down the top. I'm using my fingers, just pull it over that front of that wall. And then I'm gonna use my bone folder to push the edges, push all the air bubbles towards the bottom of my box. And then lastly, bone down these turn-ins. And then I have a little bit of glue here. It looks like it's already dry just because of, oh, it's a little flaky and dry. Oh, here's some good glue. So this is a crepe eraser, and you can actually just, you don't want to rub it in, you don't want to do this on wet glue, but if it's dry like this, I think this came off my fingers. I'm going in one direction. I don't want to break the cloth, but you kind of do like a flicking up motion, and you can flick off that glue. And that's how you wrap a 3-sided tray.